hear this phrase all the time, right? Strong black woman. Like, it's something to be proud of. But what if I told you that this label, even though it seems empowering, could actually be, well, kind of damaging?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The word strong usually has such positive connotations, but when it gets attached to a specific group of people, it can get, well, complicated.
And that's exactly what we're going to look at today, right? This whole idea of the strong black woman. We're
Right.
going deep, looking at how this myth became a thing, what the consequences are, and they're real, and then what real healing and support could look like once we get past this honestly harmful stereotype.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not about saying black women aren't resilient. They absolutely are. But I think it's more about understanding how this myth can become this weight, a societal expectation that no one can really live up to.
Exactly. And, that's where Tammy Williams's essay comes in. She really gets into it, how this whole strong black woman thing goes way beyond just being tough. It's like there's this unspoken rule that black women have to keep their emotions bottled up.
Always got to be the caregiver, the one fixing things, never showing any cracks.
Exactly. And it's not just a now thing, right? Williams takes us all the way back to, well, slavery. I mean, black women had to endure just unimaginable things.
And for many, survival came down to appearing strong, showing no fear.
So this strength, it was born out of pure necessity. It was how they coped with this incredible trauma. But, and this is important, it also created this culture of silence.
Right. Generations of black women learned to just bury their pain, their emotions, because showing vulnerability was seen as weakness.
Yeah, you were strong enough to survive generations of oppression, so you should be strong enough to handle anything. It's just not fair, and it totally ignores the very real impact of trauma.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember that this myth doesn't just affect black women individually. It impacts society as a whole.
That's such a good point, because when we hold black women to this impossible standard of strength, it messes up how we view strength for everyone, doesn't it?
It really does. It reinforces these rigid and honestly harmful ideas about what being strong even means. And it stops us from connecting with each other in a real, meaningful way. We end up just continuing this cycle of silence and isolation instead of creating a space for actual healing and support.
So if this myth is so deeply rooted, going back centuries, how do we even start to break it down? I mean, where do you even begin with something like that?
Well, for me, it starts with awareness. We have
Okay.
to understand how this myth came about, the historical context, and how it's still affecting black women today. And that's where Williams's essay is so powerful, because it really shines a light on these issues and makes us think differently about strength and resilience.
It sounds like a massive task, though. I mean, changing something so ingrained in our society, it feels almost impossible. Is there even hope for real change?
And that's where this idea of beyond the horizon of hope comes in. It's about acknowledging all the pain and harm this myth has caused, but also recognizing that there's a better future out there if we're willing to do the work.
Okay, I like that. So it's not about pretending the challenges aren't there. It's about believing that things can actually change. But what does that look like in real life?
Right.
What can we do to move toward that better future?
Well, it starts with being willing to actually listen, like really hear what black women are going through without judgment, and without jumping in to try to fix things.
Just being there,
Yeah.
validating their experiences, showing them that they're seen and heard as human beings.
Yeah, exactly. It's understanding that strength doesn't come from pushing down your emotions, but from letting yourself feel them, authentically.
Creating a space where being vulnerable is actually a strength, not a weakness.
Right. And it makes me think about how often, even without realizing it, we send messages about what's okay and what's not. Like even something as simple as telling a little girl to be strong when she's upset.
Yeah, don't cry.
Yeah.
It's reinforcing that idea that she shouldn't show her emotions.
Exactly. And over time, those little messages, they build up. We need to be more aware of the language we use, the stories we tell. It's about challenging those biases, those really ingrained ideas that link strength to being stoic, to hiding your emotions, especially for black women.
You mentioned earlier that this myth affects everyone, not just black women. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Absolutely. When we hold on to this idea of the strong black woman, it creates this expectation, this really unfair expectation, that they should always be resilient, always capable.
Like they should just handle everything that comes their way.
And then when they inevitably struggle, or ask for help, they're met with judgment.
Or people saying they're weak. It's like we're not letting them be human.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of thinking can show up in other ways, too. Think about healthcare disparities. Black women's pain is often dismissed. And it impacts their careers, their relationships.
Their whole well-being.
Right. It's not just about what individuals go through, it's systemic.
We have to acknowledge how these stereotypes feed into these bigger systems of inequality.
And those systems affect every part of Black women's lives. It's about dismantling those systems and creating a society that truly values and supports Black women in all their complexity.
So we've talked about listening, about creating safe spaces, about challenging these stereotypes and the systems they're part of. What are some other things we can actually do? Concrete actions to help break down this myth and build a more just future.
Well, one important step is to support the organizations and initiatives that are already out there doing the work. Empowering Black women, dismantling these harmful systems.
There are some amazing groups doing incredible work, providing mental health resources, advocating for changes in policies, or even just creating spaces for Black women to connect and support each other.
Right. It's about putting our money where our mouth is, not just talking about change, but actually supporting those who are making it happen.
And using our voices. Speaking up when we see this myth happening, whether it's just in conversation or in more formal settings.
Exactly. We have to be willing to have those hard conversations, to challenge what's considered normal, advocate for a more just world.
Realizing that if we stay silent, we're just making the problem worse. We all have to speak up and challenge these harmful ideas.
Right. And remember, it's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about showing up willing to learn, unlearn, and do better.
You talked about beyond the horizon of hope as envisioning a better future. What does that future look like? Can you help us picture it?
I think it's a world where we celebrate Black women's vulnerability just as much as we admire their resilience.
Where asking for help is a sign of wisdom, not weakness.
Where self-care isn't a luxury, it's essential. Where Black women's voices and experiences are truly heard and valued.
And where there's space for joy, for laughter, for tears, for all the emotions, without judgment.
A world where they're free to just be themselves in all their complexity. And when we dismantle this myth, we create a more just world for everyone.
This has been, wow, really eye-opening. I knew the strong Black woman myth was harmful, but I don't think I realized how deeply it affects everything.
Yeah, it's been woven into our culture for so long, It's everywhere. And Tammy Williams does a great job of showing that in her essay. Unraveling it is going to take a lot of work.
But it sounds like it's essential work. Absolutely essential if we want everyone to thrive.
Definitely.
So where do we go from here? We really want to dismantle this myth. What kind of news stories can we tell about strengths and resilience for Black women and for all of us?
That's what's exciting, I think. It's about moving away from this one-dimensional idea of strength towards something, more nuanced.
More nuanced, but also more empowering.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does that look like? In a practical sense, I mean.
Well, it starts with recognizing that real strength isn't about burying your emotions. It's about being able to experience them fully. It's about knowing when to ask for help and understanding that vulnerability isn't weakness. It actually takes a lot of courage.
It's about being your full self and being okay with that.
Right. And it means challenging what we think strong means, especially for Black women. We need a culture where authenticity is valued, where it's okay to be vulnerable, where asking for help, that's strength.
So we're not just breaking down this myth, we're building something new, a better understanding of what strength really is, something that benefits everyone.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond that horizon of hope, creating a world where everyone feels seen and heard, where Black women are free to just be without the weight of this stereotype.
That's a powerful image. As we wrap up, I want to thank you for being here, for sharing your insights. It's really made me think.
It's been great being here. And this is just the start of the conversation. We hope everyone listening keeps exploring these ideas, keeps challenging their own assumptions, and keeps working towards a more just world.
To everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has given you a new way to think about strength, and that you'll join us in dismantling the strong Black woman myth and in building that brighter future for everyone.